Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at something that's been in the news quite a bit lately.
Yeah.
Economic conditions and how they can hit businesses a lot closer to home than you might think.
Absolutely.
So it's got some fascinating research here on interest rates, wages, unemployment, all that stuff.
Right.
And to help us really bring all this stuff to life, we're going to use the example of a major Australian retailer.
Okay.
Harvey Norman.
Yeah. It's interesting, how something as big as the economy can have such a direct impact on businesses that we all know.
Right. Yeah. And before we get into the specifics, I think it's important for us to just define what we're talking about. When we say economic conditions, I feel like that's one of those terms that economists kind of throw around.
Definitely.
But it's actually super important for all of us to understand. So what are we really talking about here?
Yeah, you're right. It is a phrase that gets used quite a bit. It's really at its core about the overall health of the economy. Are things looking good? Are they growing? Or are we in a little bit of a slump?
Right.
And that health that we talk about is actually measured by a lot of different indicators. We're just going to be focusing on three big ones today: interest rates, wages, and unemployment. And these are not just numbers on a spreadsheet. They tell us how much money people have to spend, how confident they are about the future, and that directly impacts how businesses do.
Right. Okay. So let's jump into the deep end here with these interest rates.
Yeah.
So I know that they're on the rise right now in Australia, and our sources specifically mentioned Harvey Norman.
Okay.
What is that? What's that connection there?
Well, imagine this. You've got a family in Sydney. They're looking to buy a new fridge from Harvey Norman suddenly. Their mortgage payments jump up. Because of these rising interest rates, they might still need that fridge, but now they're a lot more price sensitive, or they might even delay that purchase altogether.
Yeah.
And that's that domino effect in action. When rates rise, people just have less disposable income, and that means less spending at retailers, especially on things like furniture and appliances.
Okay, so it's all connected. It's interesting though, because I know some people argue that rising interest rates might actually be good for some retailers in the long run.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
It's a great point. And it's not always doom and gloom, right? So there's this concept called the wealth effect. And this wealth effect says that when interest rates rise, house prices can fall. And when house prices fall, people feel less wealthy.
Right.
So that definitely hurts businesses like Harvey Norman, but higher interest rates can also encourage people to save more, and that could benefit businesses that are focused on financial products and services.
Okay.
So it's complex. It really depends.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. This is what I love about economics. It's not always cut and dry. Okay. Let's move on. We've talked about interest rates. Let's talk about wages now.
Okay.
We know that they play a huge role in what people can afford to spend.
Yeah.
But our sources also talk about the psychological impact of wages. So can you unpack that a little bit?
Absolutely. Think about it. If your wages stay the same while everything else gets more expensive, it's discouraging.
Yeah.
And that feeling of uncertainty can really make people hold back on even necessary purchases.
Yeah.
And that's going to impact businesses across the board.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, when wages rise, it often signals a healthy economy. People feel confident, they're more willing to spend, and businesses like Harvey Norman are going to thrive.
So that makes you wonder, how much of economics is really driven by the numbers and how much of it is how people feel about the numbers.
It's really fascinating.
Yeah. Okay. So last but not least, let's talk about unemployment.
Okay.
Now, it's not just about individuals being out of work, right? There's a ripple effect, a chain reaction. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, when you have high unemployment, it can trigger a whole chain reaction. Fewer people are working, which means less overall spending, which can force businesses to cut back or reduce their investments or even lay off more workers. And that creates that vicious cycle.
Right.
But it's also important to remember that not all unemployment is created equal.
Okay.
There's cyclical unemployment, which happens during economic downturns. And then you've got structural unemployment, which might be due to shifts in technology or industry needs. And each one of these types can impact businesses in different ways.
So it's a complex issue with lots of different moving parts.
It really is.
So as we kind of wrap things up here, what would you say is the big takeaway? It seems like even these massive, these national level economic conditions can have a really, really personal impact.
Oh, absolutely. The economy isn't some abstract concept. It's really the sum of millions of individual decisions and choices. Choices that are influenced by factors like interest rates, wages, unemployment. We see it play out in businesses like Harvey Norman every single day.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really powerful reminder. So I challenge all of you listening to consider, the economic conditions in your area. How are they impacting the businesses that you interact with? Are people being more cautious? Are businesses adapting? It's really a fascinating lens through which to view the world. So think about that. And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.